You're an American citizen.
Yeah.
And you're being told you have to wait in line in the United States of America in favor of somebody who's not an American citizen, who crossed the border illegally, that is going to be treated better because it's a sanctuary city, that is LA, and a sanctuary state, that is California. How do you think that's going to vibe with most Americans? You can't have stuff like that happening and think that there's not going to be major noise and friction and polarization in the country when you let something like that happen. There is no way that that's going to fly. I think most Democrats know that. The problem is they've surrendered to the extreme progressive left because they're fearful that they will lose their power positions if they don't. I think that's what the problem is more so than anything else, and that's what's going on in our nation's.
Stephen A. Smith has launched yet another fierce critique aimed at the Democrats, and it's striking to see it play out. When outspoken figures like Stephen A. and Bill Maher begin challenging their own political side, it signals that deeper issues may be surfacing. His pointed commentary reminded viewers why many believe the party struggled in recent elections. As always, be sure to subscribe, and let's dive in. For context, I'll share this clip first, then follow up with Stephen A.'s strong reaction.
I think that there were two officers who were facing lacerations on their face.
Call for prosecution of those who pelted them?
Look, I've seen the videos of this snowball fight. I think that it was a snowball fight.
A snowball fight or assaulting cops?
I think it's a combination of both. They're law enforcement. They're not engaging in a snowball fight with you. They don't want to be bothered. If they're law enforcement and that's not something that they were entertaining, then assault would be the way to go. Now, obviously, if you just hit them with some sort of snowball or whatever the case may be, I mean, you didn't harm them or anything. That's entirely different. So there's different levels of assault, but nevertheless,
well, you're not harmed until you're harmed.
But nevertheless, exactly. The act is the act itself, and the law enforcement wasn't capitulating to that kind of situation. Then we have to take that into consideration. And if they felt it was assault, then damn it, it was assault, plain and simple. But once again, this is something that comes back to bite Mamdani because he wasn't considered the strongest supporter of the NYPD as he was running for office.
What we saw in that footage started as lighthearted fun, but quickly took a more serious turn. Many New Yorkers were simply embracing the heavy snowfall, turning the city into a temporary winter playground. There was laughter, playful running, and snowballs flying in what should have been a harmless break from harsh weather conditions. However, the situation shifted when certain individuals intentionally targeted NYPD officers, not playfully, but with clear hostility that crossed a significant boundary, especially once officers were reportedly injured. At that point, it stopped being innocent fun and became a serious matter. When questioned about whether those responsible would face consequences, Mamdani reportedly brushed it off as just a snowball fight. That response surprised many observers. Now listen carefully as Stephen A. delivers his reaction.
But once again, this is something that comes back to bite Mamdani because he wasn't considered the strongest supporter of the NYPD as he was running for office. When you listen to some of his rhetoric in the past, some of the things that he had said about the police didn't seem to be that keen on being supportive about them. I don't recall whether or not he was talking about defunding police, but I believe.
Oh yeah,
I believe he did say that.
I
believe he did say that. So because that's a reality. You know, when you see that kind of stuff, it sort of seems dismissive about concerns for law enforcement. And that is not a good position for him to be in, particularly when they're not getting raises or anything like that, because you don't have the money to take care of them, nor did you appear inclined to do so even if you did. So all of those things definitely work against him. And that's the kind of thing that can turn officers against you. And with all the problems that New Yorkers...
Stephen A. makes a strong case in evaluating this situation. During his campaign, Mamdani previously expressed support for defunding the police. Given that context, minimizing the incident as a simple snowball fight raises questions about consistency and responsibility. When officers are injured after being deliberately targeted, dismissing it casually may send an unintended message to the public. It risks suggesting that hostility toward law enforcement is tolerable or insignificant. In a city already navigating complex public safety concerns, that perception can be damaging. Critics argue that if rhetoric continues to undermine respect for law enforcement, tensions could escalate further. What begins as snowballs directed at officers today could evolve into broader confrontations tomorrow. Once that threshold is crossed, restoring stability becomes far more challenging.
Did you see this AOC Mamdani video in Spanish?
Hola.
Mi español no es el mejor.
No, no te preocupes, alcalde. Si su hijo o hija está cumpliendo 3 o 4 años en el 2026, usted puede registrarlos gratis en el programa Kinder 3 o Pre-Kinder de la ciudad de Nueva York. Pero debe registrarse el 27 de febrero, que es la fecha límite. Cualquier padre de la familia de la ciudad de Nueva York, sin importar su ocupación, ingreso o estatus migratorio, es elegible para registrar a su
Child care for
Yes.
all, meaning illegals. So they are talking about illegals, number one. Now, we live in Miami. We're in Miami right now. I hear more Spanish than English outside of this studio basically all day long. So I don't have a problem with Spanish or Spanish speakers. However, speaking in another language while encouraging people who are not legal citizens to get city services, that seems a bit.
Many people are asking a broader question right now. In which countries are undocumented immigrants automatically granted completely free healthcare without restrictions? It's a serious topic, especially when healthcare systems are already under strain with extended wait times, rising expenses, and limited resources affecting citizens and legal residents. Expanding access without carefully structured guidelines can heighten fears that the system may become even more overwhelmed. Critics have raised these concerns for years, arguing that certain proposals fail to address long-term sustainability and may place additional pressure on public infrastructure. Frustration surrounding border policy during the administrations of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has intensified these debates, with figures like Mamdani and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez advocating expansive policies. Some worry about the growing strain on public systems.
I can't knock that. What I would tell you is that if you're trying to cater to that particular audience, speaking their language doesn't hurt. So that's not a crime. You know, they're voted. There are folks in the Hispanic community that are voting, and when you talk in their language, it makes them a bit more receptive to you in terms of wanting to listen to what you have to say. I mean, what parent doesn't want, you know, free preschool for 3-4-year-olds, et cetera, et cetera. But I always harken back, and it's very important that I bring this up, because I remember when some people asked me, when you became so moderate, somewhat of a centrist per se, when did that happen for you? And I can't remember the year, but I remember when George W. Bush and Dick Cheney were in office. And I never forget, as long as I live, a reporter was talking, Dick Cheney, former Vice President of the United States, God rest his soul, he was talking to him about, the polls were showing blah, 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 blah. He looked at the report and said, so? And I was eating my cereal. I was like, what? What did he say? Because I had never seen it. I had never.
Stephen A. believes Mamdani should reconsider the progressive policies he has strongly promoted and instead pivot closer to the political center. In his view, such a move would reflect strategic awareness rather than weakness. Of course, shifting direction could spark criticism from parts of the progressive base that initially supported him. Some backers might interpret it as stepping away from core commitments. However, Stephen A. argues that leadership is not about satisfying every faction in the short term. It is about building broader credibility and long-term viability. By embracing a more balanced stance, Mamdani could appeal to moderates and independents who often determine election outcomes. More broadly, that adjustment could help strengthen the party's prospects heading into 2028 by rebuilding trust among skeptical voters.
A vice president do that before. The president, he said, so? And then he said, you didn't elect us to follow your lead. You elected us to lead, to do what we believe is in the best interest of this country. And that's exactly what we're doing. And then the reporter elaborated a little bit about something with Planned Parenthood and stuff like that. And she tried to accuse him of being against that. He said, I'm not against that at all. I'm against you asking the government to pay for it. And all of a sudden, it opened my eyes and reminded me what all of this is really, really about. Most people in this country have a live and let live attitude. Live your life, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the uproar about?
Voters choose leaders to act with clarity, conviction, and purpose so that others can move forward with confidence. Yet critics argue that the DNC increasingly appears reactive rather than proactive. Instead of setting a clear direction, the party is often perceived as adjusting positions in response to external pressure. Rather than presenting a unified vision aimed at appealing across diverse communities, including minority groups, it risks appearing driven by appeasement instead of leadership. That perception can dilute authority and create the impression of inconsistency. Over time, this dynamic may weaken public trust and suggest that the party is willing to accommodate nearly any demand without weighing broader consequences. Strong leadership, critics contend, requires balance, listening to varied perspectives while maintaining principles that serve the entire electorate.
The uproar is about the fact that you're going into the pockets of the American people and asking them to subsidize it. And when you do that, now you've got them up in a tizzy.
Yep.
Because you're saying this is where your taxpayer dollars is going to. And when that happens, all of a sudden, that gives everybody the right to speak up and say, wait a damn minute here. How is that possible? I know of a young lady that's a friend of mine that got in a car accident in LA and literally needed to be treated, etc. And her bill was very, very exorbitant when she got treated at the emergency room and stuff like that. And she was trying to get on the phone, get some assistance, etc., etc. They literally told her, if you were a migrant, it would be easier to take care of you. But the problem is that you're an American citizen, so you have to wait in line.
For taxpayers who have contributed to public systems for years, the belief that others may access equal or expanded benefits without similar obligations can feel unfair. It fosters the impression that long-term contributors are being sidelined while newcomers receive priority. Whether entirely accurate or not, that perception alone can generate frustration and diminish trust in leadership. Critics emphasize that the issue is not compassion, but equilibrium, ensuring that policy decisions do not inadvertently marginalize citizens. When individuals feel overlooked within systems they have financially supported, resentment and division can grow, further weakening confidence in government priorities.
You're being told you have to wait in line in the United States of America in favor of somebody who's not an American citizen, who crossed the border illegally, that is going to be treated better because it's a sanctuary city, that is LA, and a sanctuary state, that is California. How do you think that's going to vibe with most Americans?
This dynamic helps explain why some Americans appear to be distancing themselves from the Democratic Party. When voters believe their concerns are minimized or their contributions undervalued, dissatisfaction builds rapidly. If those grievances remain unaddressed, they can significantly influence future election results. For Democrats, the challenge extends beyond defending policy. It involves restoring trust among voters who feel disconnected from the party's trajectory. Failing to respond to these sentiments could carry serious electoral consequences. Many citizens are signaling that their patience is thinning, and upcoming elections may reflect that discontent.
I don't care what city you in. I don't care what state you in. Basically, what nation you're from. If you are a native of that country and you're being told you have to wait because they're favoring somebody who's not a native, who crossed the border illegally, you're going to have a problem with that, no matter who you are or where you're from. So understanding those kind of things is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about common sense.
Donald Trump built his political identity around an America First message. That theme resonated strongly with voters who felt overlooked by conventional leadership. Supporters highlight his firm approach to immigration, his readiness to challenge international norms, and his assertive trade strategies as evidence of that commitment. Whether confronting China over trade disputes or prioritizing domestic industries, Trump consistently framed his actions as defending American workers and national sovereignty. For many voters, that direct and unapologetic focus on national interest remains compelling.
You can't have stuff like that happening and think that there's not going to be major noise and friction and polarization in the country when you let something like that happen. There is no way that that's going to fly. I think most Democrats know that. The problem is they've surrendered to the extreme progressive left because they're fearful that they will lose their power positions if they don't. I think that's what the problem is more so than anything else, and that's what's going on in our nation's case.
Ultimately, the current political environment underscores why dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party appears to be growing among certain voters. Some Americans believe their priorities are overshadowed by policies they view as favoring undocumented migrants or specific interest groups. From healthcare debates to public safety concerns, critics describe a disconnect between taxpayer contributions and perceived benefits. Progressive leaders like Mamdani risk alienating moderates who feel unheard. Commentators such as Stephen A. Smith and Bill Maher have highlighted these tensions, warning that overlooking voter concerns could result in electoral setbacks. Meanwhile, figures like Donald Trump continue to attract support with a straightforward national first message centered on citizens' interests. For many voters, Effective leadership is less about ideology and more about accountability, clarity, and practical outcomes that align with national priorities. And with that, we conclude today's discussion. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.